What's up, YouTube? What's happening? What's happening? This one gonna be about Chuck D and his musical influences. Now, obviously, the one the first that comes to mind has got to be Gil Scott Heron, because you can definitely hear it on his tone, his phrasings, his vibe, um, the musicality, the way the production was. With the Bomb Squad. If Gil Scott Heron had updated from what he did with the Revolution will not be televised with Brian Jackson and all that sound he was doing back in the day, the Bomb Squad, if he was going to use a futuristic with those built on strings and samples and loops, would have been intriguing. Motown played a big part. The punk movement did. Funk played a big part. Stax Records, you heard all that on what he was doing. Another big influence on Chuck D was Bob Marley, because you're gonna talk about being a freedom fighter and having a voice against protests and taking yourself to the next phase and levels. You can definitely hear it on what they were doing, what he was bringing, high musical hybrids and strongs and strength and inspiring. Because Chuck D, for hip hop, vocally was a lot like what Muhammad Ali was in the streets, and what he represented, his tone, his vibe, that aura. What Richard Pryor did on the stage. But Reggie Jackson did baseball and what he would do with his bat. You could tell that aura, and Chuck D represented. So, and I always like to read, because he's a true musical historian, very deep detail, speaks out on a lot of different topics, um, and he's one of those wise souls that when you listen to him, he feels deeper because he's quite profound in what he does and what he says. So his musical influences from a Gil Scott Heron to Bob Marley, you can definitely feel that energy, that synergy, that passion, that drive, that force, because he really understands the order. And then, of course, with the punk movement, when you talk about, different bands and genres and styles, and that movement had an angle which you could definitely feel that they were counter to the counterculture. So he definitely with that. The Motown stacks with the soul and the R&B. And of course he alludes to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, because you kind of could not help that. When you hear the message and everything like that, that was groundbreaking at the time. White Lines and what they were doing. You couldn't help it with Melly Mel and them. So, that was kind of almost inevitable. If you grew up around a certain era, certain time period, especially if you have the conscious mind and depths and magnitude, oh yeah, you were definitely gonna feel that. It was definitely gonna be all the way in. And then of course Run DMC, who I've said are like the Jackson Five Beatles of hip hop. They were the standards. They were uh it's funny because when I think about it, it feels just like yesterday. Because again, I grew up on that era with that, and I kind of, when I think about it, it's like, wow, this seems just like yesterday. But then it's moved on so fast. The styles and the vibes and everything and origins, things have changed. But what an era that was, what a styling that was, what a wavelength of music that was. So, but Chuck D, you can hear all that on here musically and then some. And definitely left a lasting impression. And one of my top five MCs ever, Chuck D. So, hold him in high regard. But anyway, let me know what you think about Chuck D's musical influences, and let's talk about it. And there have been other artists and people that he was inspired by too. So fill it in if you want. Please like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another. Share it if you like, and hit that membership, because when you do, requests like this come true. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.